For those of you who've been looking for Season 1 of Solarpunk Presents, but haven't been able to find it, here it is. Originally, it was published as part of Solarpunk Magazine's Solarpunk Futures podcast. We're reposting our episodes on our site to make them easier for you to listen to if you didn't catch them the first time. We hope you enjoy them. Also, don't forget to support us by spreading the word about Solarpunk Presents, writing us a review, or subscribing to our Patreon at patreon.com/solarpunkpresents. Hello and welcome to Solarpunk Presents, the companion podcast to Solarpunk Futures. Hosted by Solarpunk Magazine nonfiction editors extraordinaire Ariel Kroon and Christina de Rocha. Ariel and I will be using this companion podcast to Solarpunk Futures to explore solarpunk goings-on in the world today. We'll be interviewing all sorts of interesting people who are doing work in the here and now that will help us get to a solarpunk future. And we'll be talking to each other about the visions of a sustainable, equitable future integral to solarpunk, and about issues we're curious about within the movement or genre, or whatever it is you want to call solarpunk. Welcome to Episode 8 of Solarpunk Presents, in which Ariel interviews Heather MacKenzie, the Executive Director of Solar Alberta. For those of you who aren't familiar with Canada's 13 provinces and territories, Alberta is sandwiched between British Columbia to the west and Saskatchewan to its east, and it sits above the U.S. state of Montana. About 4.3 million people live there. Its capital is Edmonton. The pillar of its economy is the oil and gas industry, which provides 15.3% of Canada's GDP. Solar Alberta is a non-profit that aims to change that by supporting and advocating for solar energy and solar-related technologies. Their goal is an Alberta with a sustainable and just energy sector. Okay, take it away, Ariel and Heather.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Solarpunk Presents. Today, I'm joined by Heather MacKenzie, who's the Executive Director of Solar Alberta. Heather, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
So let's start off, but I just want you to introduce yourself and maybe talk a bit about how Solar Alberta got started and how you got involved with them.
I got started with Solar Alberta just 2 years ago, but actually the organization has been around for well over 31 years. So it's a very long-standing not-for-profit society in Alberta. Over the past 31 years, that's gone through many different sort of versions of Solar Alberta. So we were the Solar Energy Society of Alberta, and we recently adopted the new name Solar Alberta and are enjoying the simplicity of that. And we started out sort of as a do-it-yourself solar club. Just a bunch of dudes wanting to get up on their roofs and mess around with new technology and very expensive technology at the time. But some of the first solar installations in Western Canada went in as a result of our members and their enthusiasm for solar energy. And then over time, it transitioned into a very formal sort of not-for-profit. And I guess it would have been about 10 years ago, things really started to shift, right? And I think you will be well aware that the price for solar started dropping. It became more realistic for your average Albertan to participate in the solar sector. And so as that shift occurred, we saw something of a maturation of the industry. So a lot of those folks who were the do-it-yourself fellas on the roof decided to start businesses and start doing solar for other people. And Solar Alberta has essentially become a hub for both solar enthusiasts and solar industry alike. And so we now have about 350 members, about 150 of those are businesses. Many of them are microgeneration focused, so they focus on installations that are for homes and businesses, and they still get up on those roofs and do it themselves. But a lot of them are now also, I call them solar related or solar adjacent, because of course we've had a recent solar farm boom in Alberta as well. And so we're seeing an ever increasing number of fascinating new members who are interested in all things solar farms, like anything from the folks who want to sell you the screws for your solar farm to the people who want to deal with offsets. So we have a really interesting mix of members right now. And our mission is really to accelerate the energy transition here in Alberta in both a just and sustainable way. So we are equity focused, and we're really passionate about making sure that the solar sector becomes more diverse and inclusive. And also we are doing a lot of public education and advocacy. So we spend a good chunk of time putting together webinars and conference program and all sorts of things to bring everybody along on this ride as we transition into a more sustainable future.
Thank you so much for letting me know. I became familiar with Solar Alberta while I was living in Edmonton for the past 6.5 years, but I didn't know that it started so grassroots.
Yeah, it's really neat. And some of the original members are still around. And so we really enjoy having them at our events and just constantly online defending the cause, dealing with all of our trolls.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's not every day. Oh, pardon me.
Oh, I was going to ask, do you get a lot of trolls?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, anytime you pay to advertise any program, you basically get hit up with plenty of trolls. And that's just the nature of the beast. I think anyone trying to do anything new and emergent in the energy sector is probably dealing with the same issues. So part of the transition is dealing with the trolls.
Some people really love new things. Some people are a little bit more reluctant to get to new things. And
yeah, and some of it is just hardcore trolling, but sometimes it's genuine questions and critiques, and actually we use much of that feedback to build our programs. So we were getting questions about solar panel recycling and questions about the life cycle analysis of these modules. And so we've been running webinars about that, and we've been working with the Alberta Recycling Management Authority to establish Alberta's, first made in Canada reuse and recycling program. So it's pretty exciting. And so I shouldn't say, not all trolls are alike. Some are just being paid by the establishment to kind of come online and talk smack no matter what. And others just have genuine questions, and they've read things that made them wonder about the sustainability of our product. And so, happy to answer questions about that and make sure that we are good players and good ethical players in the energy sector as well.
I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about why it's so important for Solar Alberta to do the work that it's doing, especially in the unique political situation unique economic situation of Alberta, Canada, especially for a lot of our listeners who aren't from Canada and might not be quite familiar with Alberta as basically the heart of oil and gas country in Canada.
I mean, we wear multiple hats these days, right? We have that oil and gas hat, but we also have, we are now one of the biggest sort of solar powerhouses in the country as well. And so we do have incredible solar potential, I think second only to Saskatchewan in Canada. And so that's phenomenal, especially in southern Alberta, some of the best solar production potential. This solar PV I'm talking about, by the way, of course, solar thermal's in the mix still here and there, but it's certainly not as prominent in Alberta as the solar PV. And when I talk about our generating potential, I'm talking about solar photovoltaic, just for those who are wondering, because so people think solar thermal, you're not the powerhouse of solar thermal. I say, no, we're a powerhouse when it comes to solar PV, because of course solar PV likes colder climates. So it's actually not a problem for solar PV to take off in Alberta. We do have a really unique sector here. So one of the big differences between Alberta and the rest of Canada is we don't have a Crown Corp running everything in terms of the electricity market. It's all private, right? So we're kind of the Texas of Canada. And so we've got this private market, and that allows for extremely fast growth in the solar sector. So we are just seeing it's exponential. It's almost keeping up with those COVID rates. I mean, it's amazing to see how the solar is taking off, in part because of our market. Essentially, what our market allows for is solar farm developers can come in, as long as they can get permission through the ISO to operate, they can actually sell their power directly to some of those large multinational companies through power purchase agreements. So you see Amazon, you see RBC, you see Labatt's, all of these power purchase agreements where folks are making a deal directly with the solar developer. That's only actually possible really in Alberta within the Canadian context. So that's part of why we're seeing such a boom here, is because folks can make a deal. Also, Albertans love making a deal, so that lends itself to our culture very well. Yeah, so that's a little bit about Alberta and how we're special, and Solar Alberta in particular is very important, not just for promoting the solar potential of Alberta, but also we're kind of a hub for the little guy. So we really, of our 150 businesses, I think about 120 of them are actually small businesses under 5 employees. So we really are a place where folks can come if they're wanting to be new entrants into the sector, wanting to transition into the sector. A lot of people are attracted to our programs, especially if they're transitioning out of the oil and gas sector, because we provide professional development that is really beneficial if you're making that shift from one industry to another. Yeah, so that's a little bit about us and the role we're playing here in Alberta.
Yeah, for sure. With that, providing education and training and upskilling, I guess, to a lot of former oil and gas employees, do you find that a lot of those workers tend to seek you out, or do you make a lot of presentations and they come to you? How does that kind of work?
You bet, you bet. So we run a variety of events throughout the year. We do have kind of networking events at our solar show. So this year it'll be February 6th through 10th. And on the last night, we'll have sort of a storytelling night. This is what we've done the last 2 years, is storytelling about folks making the transition into the sector, how they did it. Many of them mid-career professionals who are making the shift, where they went for their training, how they approached being hired. So we do a lot of storytelling. We do a lot of relationship building, mostly online, of course, right now because of COVID, but also because we are province-wide. And so this allows us to make sure we're connecting with people in rural and northern Alberta as well. And then, of course, we use our partners as well to promote transition into the sector. So we have a great partnership with Iron and Earth. They are working very directly with oil workers as well as Indigenous Albertans to transition those folks into the sector. So we kind of a mutual referral relationship. If anyone wants to get a job on a solar or wind farm, we say, hey, go to Iron and Earth for their rapid retraining on-site programs. And if Iron and Earth is discovering that someone wants to make a living doing rooftop solar installations in their home community rather than running around to every solar farm in the province, and they can ship those folks over to us for some of those rooftop programs and training. So we work hard together. We also work with Relay Education, which is a charity across Canada. They have a Green Collars career program, and together we provide tours to commercial sites for folks who are interested in learning about the ins and outs of solar installations on the ground. But we also do additional, I call them, it's kind of, it's like speed dating. We do sort of a speed dating process for folks who are considering entering the sector with those who are already in it. So we don't technically call it speed dating every time we promote it, but that's how I imagine it. And we use like Zoom platform to just push people through different breakout rooms with different individuals and hope that something takes hold. This month, actually, we're doing something new. We're bringing together most of the polytechnics in the province, so the post-secondary programs that are kind of college or, hands-on training. And we're bringing them together for one night to essentially be an online open house for folks who are interested in the solar sector. So that's really cool. That's the first time we've tried that. And it's actually coming up, I'm just going to double check here, the 27th of September. So yeah, if people are interested in meeting all the different folks here, we're going to have Lakeland College, we're going to have Lethbridge, they're wind experts in Lethbridge. We're going to have Red Deer here. We're going to have all sorts of folks. Nate's attending, I believe. And Nate, of course, has a long history of providing training in the renewable sector here in Edmonton.
So your workshops, are they only sort of available in the moment when people sign up to and go to them, or do you have a YouTube presence where you have sort of the videos on demand later that people can check out?
Yeah, good question.
Sure.
So
about?
all of our free programming, which includes most of our solar show every year, as well as our Thursday seminar series, which we run on 1 or 2 Thursdays a month. Those programs are all recorded and edited and thrown up on YouTube. So you can access them on YouTube or through our website. That's for all of our free programming. So that's solaralberta.ca. And then any of our paid content, which is kind of funny to call it paid, it's very affordable because we are not for profit. So, our our hour-long workshops are usually like $40 to download. Our 8 to 10 hour courses, or sometimes even longer than that, our courses are usually like 175, 200. So it's very affordable training. That's more the professional development, industry oriented training. That's all available on our website, pay per download. We do have a bunch of live courses launching this fall, and we run them Tuesday and Thursday evenings because they're really tailored towards folks who are actually already working 9 to 5, and they really need the evening professional development. So you'll find a lot of electricians in our courses. For example, they're used to working in the oil sector. They want to shift over to solar, but they need to know all the codes for solar. So we have like a electrical codes for solar program. Yeah. And then you'll also get a lot of engineers who are maybe used to doing design work in some other space, and they're interested in learning about solar rooftop solar design and modeling. So we get a lot of folks like that. But lately, actually, it's ever increasing diverse attendees, and really neat to see some of the different folks who are showing up for our classes. So now that we've gone online, actually, the coolest thing is seeing how truly cross Canada the solar sector is. It's just like any other energy sector, right? Like we've got all these folks from Eastern Canada signing up for our courses because they're about to be shipped over here, and their employers are like, you better learn the sector in Alberta before we ship you over there. So it's really interesting to see how folks are coming from across Canada here. We've played that role historically. Our energy sector has always drawn people from around Canada, and it's just interesting to see how solar plays the same role. So, yeah.
Yeah, you anticipated a question I was going to ask you, was that does Solar Alberta, obviously it's in the name, it's focused on Alberta, but do you have partnerships with other sort of cross-Canada organizations or anything like that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we actually have really strong partnerships. One is with CanRIA. So CanRIA is the National Wind and Solar Association. I'm sure you're familiar with them, but they are an industry association, whereas we are a not-for-profit society. So we play slightly different roles. We have members who are not businesses as well as businesses, whereas they are exclusive. But we have a great partnership with them, making sure that we're engaged in each other's events and activities. We also are connected a little bit to some of the other solar folks around the country. I will say Solar Alberta is fairly unique. I know there's Solar Nova Scotia. I think that's happening nowadays. I've been seeing them a little bit online, but there aren't a lot of other provinces or territories with something comparable to Solar Alberta. So what's happening more and more in Western Canada, and what I've noticed in our membership, is a lot of folks from BC and Saskatchewan, especially the solar businesses there, are gravitating to us. We even have this Alberta solar map that shows all the case studies of our members. And it's just really interesting because, we don't force them to conform to our borders. And so all these installations are popping up on our case study map from BC and Saskatchewan. And that's how, that's how we know that we're playing a very large role here in Canada, not that's just awesome. Serving Albertans. Yeah.
Yeah, well, sunshine knows no borders, I suppose.
Exactly. and actually, a lot of Alberta-based businesses are operating in Saskatchewan and BC, and vice versa, right? So, so they also, as companies, just aren't really sticking around in one particular province.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Well, yeah, and we've seen actually that reminds me that we've seen a lot of movement. So companies that may have once been Edmonton-based are now doing work all across the province. Companies that were originally Calgary-based are now all over the province, lots of demand from rural Alberta. So one of the courses we started offering is about working with Alberta's wire providers, because another unique factor here is because we don't have one crown corporation running running the show. We actually have, I think, like more than 8. There are quite a few different wire providers. There are the 4 big ones, so they do all the energy distribution. So you've got, got your municipally controlled a company, which is essentially a mini Crown Corp in Edmonton, EPCOR. And then you have your mini Crown Corp in Calgary, NMAX. And then you've got ATCO and Fortis in rural Alberta, quite dominant. And then a few municipalities have their own, they really do their own thing. Medicine Hat's very unique. And we do have also Equus and a number of rural electrification associations. So we've been running a wire providers course just to help folks as they expand their work across the province to be able to figure out how to work with all the different distribution folks in the sector and how to get their applications through the systems, right?
Yeah. I never thought about that. I mean, how do you get the energy from one place to another? And it, of course, is through wires.
Yeah, that distribution center. So, the distribution system is so important. The transmission system as well. I'm really excited. Next week, I've been invited to speak. The Alberta Utilities Consumer Advocate has invited me to come speak to them about the impacts of solar on Alberta's grid. And so, obviously the impacts are phenomenal from my perspective. I'm heavily biased, but, I'm just really looking forward to that conversation and talking a little bit about those transmission and distribution lines and making sure we understand the benefits of distributed energy and how that can help to reduce costs for all ratepayers in the province.
Right. Now, you spoke about this a little bit earlier, and I just want to come back to it about the sort of demographics that you've been experiencing. So there's this traditional image of the Albertan oil and gas worker that's from I think the 80s, but it's this sort of stereotypical rig pig or whatever that people look down on, being just sort of, this young guy who maybe dropped out of high school and doesn't really care about the environment. And I'd like to do a little bit of myth busting here. And so could you tell me who these workers actually are and what's in this transition for them? And how can we relate to them now in the 21st century?
Well, I think that folks who are in the solar sector in Alberta, it started out maybe 10, 15 years ago, and when the companies were first starting. Typically, you're dealing with your environmentalists. You're usually at that time talking to people who are really concerned about climate change, wanting to make a move on that, which makes perfect sense. Often you'd be dealing with middle-aged white dudes who have the power and privilege to take a risk and enter into a sector that a lot of others just don't have the ability to enter into, are more risk adverse and can't take that risk. So we had that sort of entrepreneurial risk taker, quite privileged culture for quite some time. And kudos to those original few. But now it's really shifted. Yeah. So of course, nowadays, not only are people adopting solar for largely economic reasons rather than environmental reasons, people are also transitioning into the solar sector for largely economic reasons and not necessarily always environmental reasons. So, both reasons are valid. If people need a job, they need a job, right? It's about feeding their families, and it always has been. I mean, I think, like you said, the image of the oil worker, there are very few who really meet that stereotype head on. Often it's just, somebody who really has some mouths to feed and they need to be able to make a dime. And so that's really been the history of the energy sector in Alberta, is just about providing for folks and their families. And it continues to be. Solar sector is a little different. We don't ride the same roller coaster that they do in the oil sector. So what we're finding is the solar sector is really attracting people who are looking for stability. They want to get off the roller coaster. They want to de-risk their employment. Yes, you can make more money in the oil sector. We're never going to be able to compete with that. But the reason they're making more money is because of the risk. And so, of course, if you're making 6 figures a year, That's probably because your job is very risky and you might be looking at not making much at all the next year. And so, yeah, solar sector positions, they might not start out in the six figures like an oil sector job, but the fact is they can get there and they're not going to disappear on you tomorrow. Like there's a really strong future there. So we're getting people shifting over who are interested in more job security now. It has become a much less risky industry. 15 years ago, solar was the risky industry. Nowadays, if you stay in oil, that's the risky industry because everyone knows it's a dying industry. So yeah, definitely seeing a lot of transition of people looking for stability, looking for good employment. And in the rooftop space in particular, what we get is people who would like to have work closer to home. So they're tired of having to work and live in camps, and they would like to actually serve businesses and homes in the area in which they live. So we do have a lot of people in the rooftop sector who are very committed to their local community and living local.
It's so great that Solar Alberta is connecting people with the jobs that they actually want to work.
Yeah, actually, I should mention every Wednesday we do actually push out job postings. So watch all our social media feeds. All of our members can supply. We actually have 40 volunteers who go through our members' websites, find all the job postings, and then put them all together in a big list for us to push out on Wednesdays. So just trying to simplify things, make it easier. We used to have a website they have to come to if they wanted to look for jobs, but we realized that's just a little bit too much to put on people. It's easier if you push it out at them. So if you want to just have jobs pushed at you, follow us on social media, and we will do so every Wednesday.
Oh, that's very, very nice.
Yeah. They're the ones that catch your eye, right? It's like often you might not be thinking of the solar sector, but if something comes out on social media, you're like, oh, maybe I will check that out, and maybe there is a possibility for me to enter that sector. So
wow, that's amazing.
Tweaks people's interest who might not go on a job hunt.
So Solarpunk is a genre of speculative storytelling, but it's also so much more. It's a way of imagining a better future where the energy is clean and sustainable and people are treated equitably by their neighbors, where work is something that people actually want to do as opposed to something that they just have to do in order to survive, and where like Indigenous sovereignty and land rights are respected and recognized, and where communities can freely share resources and everyone can benefit from the access to those resources. So I'm curious to know, what does your sustainable vision of this Solarpunk kind of future would look like, especially in Alberta, Canada? Would you paint us a picture?
Yeah, absolutely. So I firmly believe that we are not going to accomplish this energy transition that we need to if we're leaving half the population behind. So, yes, we can get it done, leaving half the population behind, but we're not going to get it done quickly. We're not going to get it done effectively, and it's certainly not going to be pleasant. So, so I think we actually need to bring everyone along. And so the Solar Alberta board is very committed to ensuring an equitable future as well as a just and sustainable future. So we have been actually spending a lot of time and energy on that justice piece in the last year. There are a number of steps we've taken. One, we've recognized that this is still a very male-dominated sector and also white male-dominated. So, obviously, we need to diversify this sector just as with any other energy sector. The solar sector is better than most. Apparently, we've got I think something over 30% women in the field as opposed to 20 in the oil sector, something like that. So we're definitely doing a bit better, but we know there's room for growth. So we're working on that. We've got a diversity discount code in place. If anyone identifies as equity deserving and they would like to access 20% off our courses, that's they just have to fire us an email and they can have the code for that. We actually are just in the process of launching a new scholarship that will also be equity focused, diversity focused, just looking for our first sponsor for that. So if anyone wants to be the lead sponsor on Solar Alberta's new diversity scholarship, they're welcome to participate in that way. Additionally, next month, I'm actually going to be presenting on how to build equity in the solar sector at the Calgary Climate Symposium. So people are welcome to come and tune in online, and I'll be chatting about some of the different techniques we can take. This summer, we've had this amazing intern working hard to prepare a bunch of inclusive employer resources. So recognizing that we have access to, well over 100, 150 now employers in the solar sector, and they are some of the folks who can take the lead on diversifying this area. We are giving them the resources and tools they need to hire and retain and promote more women, people of color, and Indigenous folks, and those with disabilities and others. So we're definitely providing a toolkit to make sure we're all moving in the same direction here. And that's some of what we're doing internally. Also, externally, we're advocating pretty hard for some key policy and program changes that will diversify the sector. I don't think it would be a surprise to you or your listeners to know that solar is often more affordable for those with more money, and that is a problem we need to overcome. And so we're really working hard to promote some of the new financing programs that are available. The Clean Energy Improvement Program that's rolling out in municipalities across much of Alberta has the potential to be really a game changer for low or fixed income homeowners. And so we're really promoting that. And we're also promoting income testing for that. I always say it should either be income tested or universal. If you can't give this deal to everybody, then you need to make sure it's income tested. So we're really, really promoting that for both the Clean Energy Improvement Program, but also for various rebates and incentives, either universality or income testing. Fortunately, the federal clean energy grant and loan programs, I don't think they're finite right now. It seems like they're accessible to most people. So most people who are homeowners is the sad part. It's still very oriented towards the middle class, right? Because none of these incentive programs are really beneficial for renters. Yeah, that's a major concern we have. So we are working to promote programs whereby we actually just put solar on low-income homes and affordable homes. We don't force them to pay for it, right? So, pairing solar and green building design with actual affordable housing builds as they go is a really great strategy to make sure renters and others can participate in the solar sector as well. And then there's the community generation sector, which we're just trying to see how we can support it better, because theoretically, community generation should be a great way for renters, condo owners, a variety of folks whose roofs are not solar appropriate to participate in the solar sector. But it's still very new in Alberta, and only a few people are just getting their footing in that. So we are providing sort of community generation 101 sessions, trying to bring some of the knowledgeable folks in that space out and make sure that everybody can start reaping the benefits of solar energy production on their utility bills, ideally.
It sounds like that's a really, educating the public about what's out there is so important, because there's all of these little programs and organizations and companies that people don't really know about if you're not paying attention to the solar industry itself. And so what Solar Alberta is doing is really good community service, I think.
Well, we're trying hard, and we do identify as a not-for-profit that's first and foremost here, to provide community benefit, right? So that is a goal of ours. We actually have 11,000 followers online now. And I think that is in large part because of that community benefit piece and that communication piece. People are, like you said, they want to know how to participate. And there are so many little programs here and there and little pieces of information that they need. That said, I always say, if you want to learn about how to finance your array, an easy way is to get 3 quotes from 3 of our members, and they're all heavily motivated to help people figure out how to finance their arrays. So they actually are the experts on that topic. So if people are curious about the various options, most of the installers are actually the very knowledgeable on that topic. I can't speak to all of them. That's why I always say get 3 quotes, because you might have a dud in the mix, and you won't know unless you compare them against somebody else. But yeah, it's really beneficial for them if you know how to access solar. So they often help that process along. some of them even provide their own financing. It's quite neat, like those furniture companies that do, they give you the furniture and you pay over time, or car dealerships, right? So it's really interesting to see how creative some of the solar installers have become in just helping people finance their solar arrays.
So we're reaching the end of the interview, but I wanted to ask you one last question of where you see Solar Alberta going from here. What's sort of coming down the pike, as it were?
Solar Alberta is absolutely growing right now. Growing in membership, growing in reach, growing in the need as well to expand the sector. I think especially because of all the smoke-filled summers we've been having in Western Canada, more and more Albertans are realizing that, climate change is here and now, and we can't let it get any worse. So we're definitely seeing a huge uptick in demand. Typically, we'll get about 100 new home and business arrays a month, like over the past year or two in Alberta. And last month, we ended up with about 900. So we jumped just dramatically. And part of that, I think, is related to people understanding and witnessing, climate catastrophes. And then part of that as well is just because our utility bills have been going up. And so there's just huge demand for solar to help reduce utility bills. So I think we're going to be playing a larger and larger role here in Alberta and across Canada, just making sure people feel welcome into the sector, they understand how to navigate it, and are able to access the experts in the field. And so we really are that kind of referral system. You can even request a quote on our website and our members will just fire quotes at you. So I think that will continue to be a very important role that we play. We have taken on advocacy as a new endeavor, and that is going to continue to grow. I don't think the solar sector has had the same level of advocacy as many of the other industry folks. And so we're definitely going to be playing an industry advocacy role, but also a consumer advocacy role. And so we're kind of lucky that way. We get to wear both hats. So I think more and more Solar Alberta will be having strong opinions on policies and programs of the day. And I'm lucky because having strong opinions is sort of my forte. So I feel like the direction that the organization is heading is slightly influenced by the fact that I enjoy having strong opinions. But my board seems really comfortable with heading in that direction as well, and informing government. The fact is, most levels of government are calling us on a regular basis to pick our brains. And so we're just going to be more intentional now about actually giving them clear direction about what is needed. A lot of them want to help and they want to do something for the world, and climate action is at the forefront for them. And they just don't know what it is they should do. So we're just giving them a helpful little to-do list. We're just going to keep creating those to-do lists.
Whoa, that's amazing. I look forward to seeing more of that in the future then. And I feel better knowing that you guys are out there and really helping shape the future of sustainable energy, especially in Western Canada. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. And I will say, some people are surprised that we're so loud and proud at the solar sector here in Alberta, but what they may not realize if they're not from Alberta is that solar is actually supported by every political party in this province. There's nowhere on the political spectrum that you won't find solar enthusiasts. We've survived a variety of different governments and we'll continue to survive the next one. And I think that's very unique to the solar sector is we are beloved by the libertarians who just want to say goodbye to to all the regulators. And we are also loved by those who don't mind being regulated and enjoy getting money from selling to the grid. So it's really interesting to see the breadth of support we have here in this province.
That is so great. Thank you so much for your time. It was lovely chatting with you.
Have a good one. Thanks, Ariel.
And that was episode 8 of Solarpunk Presents. Thank you for listening to Solarpunk Presents, a series embedded within the Solarpunk Futures podcast, written, hosted, and produced by Christina Rocha and Ariel Kroon. This podcast is a part of Solarpunk magazine, which is published by Android Press, which is located on Kalapuya Ilihi, the traditional indigenous homeland of the Kalapuya people. Today, descendants are citizens of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians of Oregon. The opening and closing music for Solarpunk Presents is Water Cooler Gang by Monkey Warhol and is available for use under the Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International License. So, thank you again for listening, and until the next episode, stay Solarpunk.